Hi everyone, welcome to another video on my channel. Today I'm taking on a big challenge of tackling all of your guys' questions about UCL, my university, my course, London life, student life, all of that jazz that I do talk about throughout my videos, and I've made previous Q&As about UCL. I've made a video in which I talked about things I wish I'd known before going to UCL, and it's all very relevant, don't get me wrong, but it also seems a little bit outdated because both of these videos were recorded in my first year, and so I've had, let's say, half as much experience, and I was studying at UCL for half as long as I am now, so I naturally have quite a few new realizations and inputs, and I always can tell that you guys are very curious about my student life and life at UCL, and I'm not even that surprised because I myself was very much interested in the topic when I was applying to universities or considering which one to choose. So I do hope that this video brings about some clearance on things you were wondering about, or in case you're in the middle of choosing universities right now, because it's April, so I would have guessed that soon enough people who are applying to universities in the UK will have to make their choices, so good luck to you on that. I've had a few people come up to me at campus, spotting me and telling me that they chose UCL because of my videos, first years, and that was that's an insane thought, to think that my videos could have such an impact, and not to boast myself, but even more so when I get these types of comments and people saying that, I do really want to make sure that I am putting out the right message and saying what I think truthfully, because I by no means mean to hype up UCL as this super great university that there's no faults with and everyone should go there because it's just my brand. I really want to give you guys my honest opinion about how my experience looks like, but also try to remain as objective as I can, because I definitely don't want you to base your uni choice just on my videos, because these are vlogs, they're edited, there's always this touch of romanticization to my life, I would say, and it doesn't always look that great. But yeah, that was just a little side note and a disclaimer I wanted to put out before anyone clicks UCL on UCAS as their first choice. Not saying it's a bad choice, it's probably a very good choice, but it needs to be your choice, bestie. You guys asked so many questions, which I was very happy about. I literally have 32 answers, so I'm gonna try to be as brief as possible. And I'm also gonna put timestamps in the video because I'm gonna try to sort the questions into different categories. So in case you're interested in just accommodation or just studying or work-life balance or grades, you can just skip to the part of the video that interests you. But otherwise, feel free to stay for the whole duration of it. You're more than welcome. Grab a tea, grab a coffee with oat milk, and let's get into it. What's your major? My major, I think this is a very American way of saying it, but I study economics. I'm in my second year. Why do I look so... Let me roll the blinds down because I look like a ghost. I'm also balancing my phone, aka my microphone right here, so hope it doesn't fall. Is your economics course hard? Yes, it is. It's a very good university and it's quite a challenging, time-consuming course. It's very maths heavy. I think there's going to be another question about that. Can you talk a little bit about economics? I'm thinking about taking the course too. Just generally the classes, subjects, and the career paths that you're thinking about. Oof, that's a very broad question. So for classes, so far in my first and second year, I didn't really get much choices when it comes to optional modules. I think in my first and second year, I got 2 optional modules each. So most of them were compulsory. And throughout these 2 years, I've learned statistics, econometrics, applied economics. I've had a module in maths for economics. Now I'm doing macroeconomics, microeconomics. We've basically covered most of the bases throughout these 2 years. And the way the last year, so my third year, is structured at UCL is I have 0 compulsory modules, and I actually am designing my whole course, which is really cool, I would say. I really appreciate that about my course, even though I do complain about it a lot. But it does eventually give you that freedom to kind of pursue what you want. And I do think that hopefully, if I choose my modules right, my third year is going to be the most enjoyable one content-wise. I don't really even particularly yet know what specifically interests me within economics. There's definitely directions in which I feel pulled towards. I do actually love when economics intersect other disciplines. So when I'm learning about economics and environment, or economics and ethics, or economics and philosophy, or economics and psychology, these are the things that interest me because I do like combining these insights from economics into other areas of life. That's, for example, why I don't particularly enjoy just macroeconomics or finance. And in regards to career paths, I don't know, bestie. For now, I am kind of pursuing economic consulting, as in that's where I applied for most of my internships, companies, economic consulting companies. And that's actually, which I don't think I've mentioned on this channel yet, That's actually where I'm gonna be doing an internship this summer. I got an offer for an internship way back in January, and somehow like I was meant to talk about it in the video, but like it always slipped my mind in every vlog, and it never felt really appropriate to say it. But I think you do deserve to know, after all my complaining that you had to go through for like the whole of first term and like even year one, where I was like stressing so much about internships like last year. I'm really glad to say that I'm going to be doing an internship, and I'm actually going to be doing it in Brussels. So I'm going to be spending my summer in Brussels. This is a very out of the blue message, and you probably don't even care that much, but I'm very happy about that. It's also the company that I wanted to work for the most. Like, it was on top of my list, and if anyone asked me, like, that would be the company I wanted to work for. That's the one that I think I'm going to be the happiest working for, and that seems very aligned with my values. So for now, economic consulting is something I'm strongly considering, but obviously this internship will kind of be the real test to verify if it only sounds interesting to me or if I actually do enjoy the work. For now, that's what I'm considering. Other than that, I don't have any plans. So if this doesn't work out, well, we're gonna have to reconsider our life choices again. So the next question is like, how many hours of classes do I have per week? It varies from week to week depending on my tutorials, but I would say in my second year it averaged to about 6 to 9 hours per week. I know that's a big thing that surprised me about university. Like, you know, you go to high school and you're used to having like 6-7 hours of classes every single day. So that's like way over 30 hours per week. But at university, a lot more time is just devoted to self-studying and like studying on your own. But, you know, also be aware that, like, for example, my friend who does biomedical sciences, I think in first term she had like 20 contact hours. So very much varies from degree to degree. It's somewhere around that like range. Do you want to do a master's? I think I do want to do a master's, and I don't know if it's a conscious, informed decision or is it just another way of avoiding adulthood and postponing my going into the labor force, baby. Another thing that's like motivating this decision is the fact that like in Poland, everyone does a master's. You go to university for 5 years, 3 years of undergrad and 5 years of master's. So I do kind of have that bias, as in like I don't perceive undergrad as like full education. I don't mean to like offend anyone or say that like you don't have a full education if you only did your undergrad. It's just in my case, I feel like I want to do it, but I'm also like not sure what I want to do it in. If I want to do it in econ, if I want to do it in like something completely else. I also don't want to do it just for the purpose of doing it, because I want to do it so it's actually like useful to maybe my career in the future, or it will, you know, get me higher earnings in the future, like some returns on the investment. That's like 25,000 probably if I choose to do my master's in the UK. I also don't even know if I want to live in the UK post-graduation. I literally have no clue. For now, I can tell you there is a plan of doing it. And the second point would be I'm probably not going to do it right after graduation. Like, I'm not going to go straight from undergrad to master's, if that makes sense. Less busy areas to study. Favorite library spots during exam season, best London study cafes. Okay, so I'm going to talk about both my favorite cafes and like study spots as well as libraries. So for libraries, first of all, British Library. It's not a UCL library. It's open to everyone and anyone. You can just literally go in. They do have limited spots though, and they're usually like taken, especially the one with like plugs. But it's a really, really pretty space. And I always somehow managed to get a spot. Like I never had to leave because there was like zero seats available. When it comes to UCL libraries specifically, as of right now, my favorite is Torrington. It's a UCL study space with 3 floors, and the top floor is the 9th floor, and it has this amazing view over like London skyline, like from both ways. I always feel like the study spaces are very open. The chairs are very comfy. There's always some free spots. It's not too crowded. I just absolutely love it, especially on a sunny day where when I feel depressed that I even have to go to a library, I always go to Torrington because there's so much natural light there. I love Torrington. I think my second favorite library would be Cruciform Study Hub. Like when you go downstairs, oh, my phone almost fell. Like when you go downstairs, it's kind of the opposite of Torrington because it's like, it's below the ground. It's kind of like dark in there, but for some reason I also like it. I think I just in general like don't like busy study areas. So I tend to prefer those ones that are there's less people there basically. Third one would be Main Library, I think. Although more for like dark academia study, fall, sad girl library hours vibes. I don't know why, but that's when I find myself being at the Main Library. Yeah, these are my top 3. I hate student center, just gonna put it out there. I don't go there anywhere, and the Wi-Fi is shit. When it comes to cafes though, I would say the Observatory has become my new obsession, although their coffee is very pricey, so do mind that. Waterstone's cafe is great. The coffee is not that expensive and they do have student discounts as well, but it can get quite cold for some reason. And also Store Street Espresso. It's another kind of like hipster, I hate that word, hipster cafe with like quite expensive but very good quality coffee. And they're also just very pretty and aesthetic and quite like mellow in atmosphere. Like it's not too busy and hectic. So would also recommend that. Is it complicated to have all your classes in English when it's not your first language? Because I did IB, which is fully English taught high school program. So all of my subjects were in English from the age of like 16 onwards. I did not struggle at all personally because my English was at a very like high level already, like academically especially. So for me, it was not difficult, but again, like I'm only talking for myself and it will depend on your English abilities, and also like academic English is a bit different from like spoken English. As long as you do understand English and are good with it and are comfortable in conversations, I think you're okay and you're gonna quickly like catch on the things you kind of like missed out or don't know yet. Ooh, this one is a hard one. If you had to change your course, what would you choose? I think I've said it a lot of times to a lot of people that if I were to choose again, I would choose PPE, which stands for Politics, Philosophy, and Economics. The reason I was saying that is because I often feel like, and I still do feel like, my course is very maths heavy and it's very, it's just economics, and I kind of find myself being interested in more subjects and often wish that my course was more diverse and it offered more like different subjects and areas I could study about. There's definitely very broad courses at UCL. There's courses such as like human sciences or arts and sciences where you just literally like design and build your own course and choose almost whatever modules you want to take. But I'm not entirely sure if I would have chosen PPE. I don't even think I like politics that much. I have one politics class right now, but it's more about like international development. So it's kind of like linked to econ anyways, and like developing countries and foreign aid. But like politics and voting and governments, it's not really something that's like much of interest to me. So I honestly don't know what I would like choose if I were to change my degree. Honestly, I think there's a lot of degrees that I potentially could see myself studying, like even English lit or sociology or international relations. Like, I don't know. There's so many things that are interesting. I don't know if I regret choosing economics. Maybe I would have hated my other course as well. So yeah, I don't have a definite answer for that, but I'm also like not entirely sure if I would have chosen economics again. I'm white again, apparently. Is there a big drinking culture at UCL? Yes, but not just UCL, I would say. Like every university, whether that's LSE, probably Oxford and Cambridge as well. There's a big drinking culture in the UK in general, and especially among students, and especially in the first year. Though I would say it's not uncommon to meet people who like don't drink or drink little. So like if you're not big on drinking, like I wouldn't say you have to stress about that, and people are very tolerant. I don't think a lot of people will judge you or say anything. Definitely no one will say anything about you not drinking. But I would say people drink a lot here, and I don't always get it. Like how much people like to get drunk, like almost blackout drunk. But I just do my thing. I drink as much as I feel comfortable with, and no one really judges me for that. And as I said, it's pretty chill. How are societies at UCL this year? I personally gave up on all other societies than sports societies. I get the appeal of like academic societies. I could never find myself really engaged in them. It always felt like work rather than out of interest. The only society I really got like actually engaged in one was pole fitness, which I started in September. I absolutely love pole fitness. I go to open practice every week. I go to classes. It's so fun. I don't know, pole is just like something that I like. It's a newly found passion of mine, and I'm very, very happy about that because I always wanted to try it, but always felt like so constrained about it because, there's like a lot of stigma around it, and pole fitness and pole dancing is very sexualized in general in our society, which is still just, it sucks because it's just another sport. But I'm really lucky to be studying at a university which is so open, and pole society is amazing. Like people are so nice there, and it feels like such a no judgment space. I just feel so comfortable there, and it's just kind of like my little safe space, like the studio. So all of my love goes to Pole Fitness Society at UCL and all the committee members and like people who I met there. It's just an incredible society. So do join a sports society. Not necessarily pole fitness if it's not your thing, but like trust me, it's one of the best part about like going to university. Best skill for future life that you learned in London but not in class or lecture. I think being proactive and being confident enough to speak up and ask for what you want and be direct about it. I think I just realized that being quiet and shy and stepping back is not always the right thing to do, and it doesn't really get you far in life, whereas the opposite does. So that's what I would say. How easy it is to socialize in London. Oh my God. Why does this sound so aggressive today? How easy it is to socialize in London. For me, it was very easy, to be honest. Not to say I never struggled with loneliness, but I think if you want to, you will be able to socialize. People are very open and they usually want to socialize with you as well, whether that's through societies, whether that's people you meet in cafes, on campus. People are very talkative as well, and I think if you approach someone sitting in a UCL cafe, they wouldn't find it creepy if you came up and like started, maybe okay, if you just came up and be like, what's your name? Then it would be like a bit weird, but like people have approached me in like very random situations in very random times, so I don't think that's weird, and I would say it's quite easy to socialize if you of course are willing to make the little like effort of talking to strangers, for example. I need a sip of water. Well, that was a little ASMR for you. The next question is something that I do think is very important to talk about. That was also one of my main concerns before coming to London. Do you feel safe while walking alone in London? Aren't men scaring you? It's my biggest fear, and I'm going to spend the summer in London and I'm scared about that. So yeah, as I said, I was also like literally terrified of this because I've heard so many horror stories about London, and I remember I literally like once cried a few days before going there because I thought I was gonna get stabbed the moment I literally leave out my accommodation. I remember my mom told me like, oh, like, don't walk after dark. Like if it's dark and you are to walk alone, like take an Uber. I don't recall one situation in which I took an Uber because it was dark. I take Ubers if I'm just like out in the city and it's quite late. Obviously, that's the safe thing to do. And please do spend that extra money on Uber rather than taking the tube at 1 a.m. I think that's where you can splurge. But I would say personally, and this will be a very biased opinion because I know people have had different experiences. Not everyone is as lucky as I apparently am, I would say. And London is definitely, you know, a very big city, and there are creepy people, there are people who you want to avoid, and there are people you don't want to talk to. I personally have never experienced a situation in which I felt unsafe in London. Obviously, as I said, very biased, and you have to take into consideration that I do live very centrally, that I live in a rather safe area. Like there's a lot of people, it's next to King's Cross and UCL campus. I rarely walk alone at night though. Like I think the only time I've like walked alone at night back from like a club or something was from the UCL club, which is literally like 5 minutes away from me. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's something that like really concerns me. I think it's just a matter of like the timing. So when it's late enough, so when you're like having a night out and it's past midnight or like even past 11, just make sure you go back with your friends, make sure someone walks you back, make sure you take an Uber rather than the public transport. Don't talk to people, don't reply to people if they talk to you on the street, and just, you know, walk straight ahead and don't engage in conversation. But I think if you're being cautious and smart and aware of your surroundings, I don't want to say good to go because, you know, obviously like not everyone is lucky enough to have never experienced that, but that does help a lot. And I think you don't have that many reasons to stress and worry about. And yeah, I think if I asked my friends, like most of them would not say that like they feel unsafe in London. What's the best and worst thing about going to uni in London / living in London? Best thing is how many opportunities there are and how open the city is. What I'm trying to say is like there's very few constraints as to what you want to do and what you want to achieve. I think the worst part is it's very expensive and very hectic and busy and can be overwhelming at times. What was first year accommodation like at UCL? So I talked about it in my previous video, but I'm going to say it again. And at the beginning of my first year, I was assigned to Campbell House East. It's a very centrally placed accom. It's literally a street away from student center, so the location was great. But frankly, I did not really enjoy the accommodation. I felt like I didn't really make friends in the accom. The people in my kitchen, I didn't really talk to that much. And granted, like this is a biased opinion because I knew people who really enjoyed it. So yeah, Campbell House East itself was not a very new accommodation. It was quite old and rusty and crusty. That's how I always call it, crusty, rusty, dusty, you know. It wasn't horrible, but like we all had to share a toilet. It wasn't the cleanest one. The rooms were quite small and there was like a carpet on the floor. So, you know, it was just like, it was not the most luxurious accommodation and it was quite pricey from what I can remember. Like it cost 190 per week, although I'm not like entirely sure right now. And so I've stayed in the accommodation for about like 3-4 months, and then in February of 2021, my best friend moved to another accommodation and I kind of followed her and I switched to Garden Halls, which is this huge accommodation with like 1,000 of students. It's also intercollegiate, which means it accepts students from University of London. And if you don't know, University of London is kind of this like whole subgroup of universities in London. Not all universities in London qualify because, for example, UAL, University Arts London, does not. There's like vet school, there's Royal Academy of Music. So I was put in accommodation with people from like King's, UCL, LSE, these other unis. I did pay a bit more. It was, I think, like £20 more a week. But it was so worth it. Like the accommodation was very new and modern. It's an accommodation that's very high in demand, I would say. Like everyone wants to end up at garden halls. And I had the luxury too, just because it was like quarantine and COVID vibes that back then. So I moved there, stayed there for the rest of my first year, and would really recommend living in gardens if you're lucky enough to get a room there. Overall, if I can just have my final say on accommodation, I would say it's better to stay in a student accommodation in your first year rather than finding a flat right away, especially if you're new to London, because that's how I made most of my friends as of now, and then met friends through them. And you know, this is kind of like a great starting point for you if you just move to the city. How is it like to be having your own apartment? It's great. Like I love having my own flat. It's so different from living in a student accommodation. And as I said before, I would advise living in a student accom in first year, even though the prospect of having your own flat as soon as you move out of your parents' house is very tempting. But that's how you make friends who you live with in your second or third year. And yeah, having my own flat is amazing. Like now that I do have it, it's, you know, hard to imagine like going back to accommodation. You know, you cook in your own kitchen, you keep it clean, there's no other people messing with it. You can have parties and there's no gonna be a guard who's gonna tell you to not invite people over. It just gives you a lot of freedom. And yeah, I've just been really enjoying my living situation in general. How much do you spend in a month as a student in London? I made a whole video about that if you're interested. I think it's called like how much do I spend a week in London actually, so multiply that by 4. This is a very like general number, but I would say I spend around like £100 a week on living. By living, I just mean like general daily expenses. So that's groceries, going out, coffees, transport. Some weeks is like 110, some weeks is like 85. So it kind of like averages out to 100, I would say. I pay 150 per week for my flat, but do mind that it's quite low considerably for what I'm getting. And we were really lucky with finding a flat that cost us that much. Wi-Fi, I pay £10 a month. I would guess I spend around 30 a month on bills. 5 top tips for living cheaply in London. Always ask for students' discounts wherever you go, whether that's a cinema, a cafe, a restaurant, a clothing store, a Muji. They won't always have it, but I think you'll be surprised as to like in how many places they do have it. I've only started doing it now because I kept on forgetting, but sometimes literally like you'll be in a sushi restaurant and they'll have a student discount. So tip number 1. Tip number 2, walk if you can, if it's not a long distance, and if you can, take the bus rather than the tube because it's cheaper. Number 3, also about transport, get a 16 to 25 rail card, 16 as in like age, It's a rail card that costs, I think, either 20 quid for a year or 70 quid for 3 years. And I think it gets you like 1/3 off of public transport, or at least the tube, and also like all the tickets you buy for trains, like to different cities. It's a great money saving, opportunity. Number 4, do your groceries weekly and do them in either Aldi or Lidl, because these are the cheapest ones from what I can remember. I've met a lot of people who were always saying that they want a budget and that they need to save money, but they would never do big rounds of groceries. They would only go to their closest Sainsbury's or Waitrose or Tesco to buy a few stuff to whip something out for dinner, or buy ready meals. And I think that's where you can lose a lot of money. It's all about kind of planning ahead. Meal prepping is a great thing because you pay a few pounds and you have a dinner for a couple of days. So that's great. And number 5, when you go out, drink beforehand. If you want to get drunk, don't buy drinks or alcohol in clubs. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money, and it's not even going to get you drunk because they usually don't even have that much alcohol in it. How do you maintain work-life balance? Work-life balance is something I'm very passionate about, and I think you might have already realized that. I very much try to stay away from toxic productivity and overworking myself, because that was a big theme for me throughout most of my life. And in uni, I think I realized there's so many more things to life that I kind of want to focus my attention on, and I've started enjoying my social life so much more. And for me, I think it became easier to maintain it as soon as I set myself goals that I want to achieve, because I had to kind of assess my time management skills as well as my capabilities, and realize that like if I want to have that work-life balance, if this is something that I'm putting to the forefront of my priorities, then I'm gonna have to give up, for example, having an 80% in my degree. Let alone, I don't even know if I would get 80%, even if I spend my whole time studying. Like, this is not a guarantee, because it's not, I feel like university grades don't work as easy as high school grades. But supposing that were the case, I decided that for me, like, I'd rather have a bit lower grades and have that work-life balance. Like, I don't want to overwork myself and be burnt out by the time I'm 21. I would say what also helps is making plans in advance. So like for the next week, so that you know which days you have to maybe work a bit quicker on and which days you can, spread your work. And I definitely think it's very possible to have a work-life balance, even if you're getting good grades. And it's something that should be a no-brainer. Like, work-life balance is not something that people should choose to have, but it should be just something that is, what is there left if you just work throughout your 3 years of university? Like, you'll not have any good memories to look back on, I would say. How do you study? Like, taking notes, digital organization, phone/Notion organization. Studying wise, I take notes on my iPad from most of my courses. So for my econ courses, I would say, for example, for my politics and philosophy courses, when I just do readings and discussions, I don't really take notes. I more so try to just be engaged in the class material and like activities in the class and the discussion, because these subjects are quite different. It's not that much like knowledge heavy, but more like understanding wise. So I do take my iPad notes, but I recently realized that I don't think they're that effective. Like, they're effective with some subjects and like with keeping things all in one place. But whenever like exam comes up, I take another set of notes, I would say, much more compressed ones, not as extensive as my iPad notes, but I think with that, I still have to kind of like work and find ways that work for me, because I feel like I do those notes just to feel like I'm doing something, if that makes sense, because it just feels too lazy to just, use lecture slides. And I just like taking my notes. Like, I want to feel that this iPad was a worthy investment. So, but I do use Notion when it comes to digital organization. Like, it's a great tool, and just jump on that train if you haven't yet already. Tips for time management. Again, like, plan ahead. That's how I literally organize my life, is just planning ahead and knowing what's coming next. So if I have an exam, I'm gonna sit a month before the exam and consider how much workload I have ahead of me, and like, how can I split it evenly between the time I want to devote to it. Same with like weeks. Every Saturday or Sunday, I plan all of my week till Friday, like which days am I gonna do which tasks for which subjects, and that just keeps it all organized. And then when I wake up on a Thursday, and I know that I have this specific list ready for me, and that just saves me the hassle of like thinking, what am I gonna do today? I do have to finish making this video. It has gone on for way too long. I know it was quite long, but I really just wanted to address like all of the little questions and concerns you guys had, or like things you were curious about. And thank you for everyone who submitted their questions. It was very fun. I love being the big UCL sister. Maybe I'm gonna make another video like this sometime next year. Definitely will, actually, like after my third year. I don't even want to think about that. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Kisses.